The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Jupiter hummed quietly as it collected radio signals from across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the endless black of space through the main view screen. His ship was humanity's first real attempt at deep space exploration, and Jake felt the weight of that responsibility on his shoulders. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," called out Lieutenant Amy Chan from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and her voice carried a note of excitement. "These signals aren't natural. Someone's out there." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the data scrolling across her screen. The patterns were clearly artificial, but unlike anything Earth had ever produced. "How far away?" he asked. "Maybe 6 hours at our current speed," Amy replied. "The signals are getting stronger. Whatever it is, it's big." Jake nodded and turned to his first officer, Commander Lisa Park. "What do you think, Lisa?" "First contact protocols." Lisa was a careful woman who had served in Earth's Space Navy for 15 years. She studied the readings carefully before answering. "The patterns look like military communications, Captain, lots of encrypted traffic, and what appears to be formation flying. I'd recommend caution." Jake agreed, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Humanity had been alone in the universe for so long. The chance to meet another intelligent species was too important to pass up. "Set course for the signal source, but keep our weapons powered down and broadcast our peaceful intentions on all frequencies." The Liberty changed course and headed toward the source of the mysterious signals. As they got closer, their senses began picking up massive metal structures moving through space. Jake counted at least 20 ships, each one larger than anything Earth had ever built. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's science officer. She was studying the alien vessels through the main telescope. "The design is completely different from ours. More organic looking, with curved hulls and what looks like energy field around them." Jake ordered Amy to broadcast a simple mathematical sequence, followed by basic images showing Earth's location and humanity's peaceful nature. They waited for a response, but the alien ships continued on their previous course without acknowledging the transmission. "Try again," Jake ordered. Maybe they didn't understand. Amy sent the message again, this time with more power behind it. The response was immediate and terrifying. One of the smaller alien ships broke formation and headed straight for the Liberty at incredible speed. "Incoming vessel," shouted Lieutenant Mike Torres from the tactical station. "They're moving fast, Captain. Too fast for anything we've ever seen." The alien ship was sleek and predatory looking, with weapon ports that glowed with dangerous energy. It stopped just a few thousand meters from the Liberty and began scanning them with some kind of beam. "They're taking detailed readings of our ship," reported Dr. Kim. "Hull composition, weapon systems, crew complement, everything." Jake tried to establish communication again, but the alien vessel didn't respond. Instead, it suddenly fired a bright beam of energy that struck one of Liberty's sensor arrays. The ship shook violently, and alarms began sounding throughout the bridge. "That was a warning shot," Lisa said grimly. "They're telling us to back off." But Jake wasn't ready to give up. Humanity's first contact with aliens couldn't end like this. He ordered Amy to send another peaceful message, this time including images of human children and families to show that they were not warriors. The alien ship's response was swift and brutal. A much larger energy beam lanced out and struck the nearby Jupiter Research Station. The civilian facility, which housed 50 scientists and their families, exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. Jake stared in horror as the debris from the station scattered across Jupiter's orbit. Men, women, and children had just died for no reason other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Captain," Amy's voice was shaking, "I'm picking up escape pods from the station. Some people made it out." The alien ship immediately changed course and began collecting the escape pods with some kind of tractor beam. They were taking prisoners. "We have to help them," Jake said, but Lisa grabbed his arm. "Captain, we can't fight that thing. Look at what it did to the station with one shot. If we attack, they'll destroy us and everyone on those escape pods will still be prisoners." Jake knew she was right, but watching helplessly as aliens capture human civilians was the hardest thing he'd ever done. The alien ship collected all the escape pods and then turned back toward the Liberty. "They're targeting us," Mike shouted. "Energy spike detected. All power to engines." Jake ordered, "Get us out of here." The Liberty's fusion drive fired at maximum power, pushing the ship away from the alien vessel as fast as it could go. Behind them, another energy beam lit up the space where they had been just seconds before. The chase lasted for 3 hours. The alien ship was faster, but Jake used every trick he knew to stay ahead. He flew through Jupiter's ring system, used the planet's gravity to slingshot around it, and even dove into the upper atmosphere to lose their pursuer in the dense gases. Finally, the alien ship gave up the chase and returned to its fleet. Jake ordered a course set for Earth at maximum speed. Humanity needed to know what was coming. As the Liberty raced toward home, Jake sat in his command chair and thought about what had just happened. The aliens had destroyed a peaceful research station without warning and taken innocent people prisoner. They had shown no interest in communication or peaceful contact. "How long until we reach Earth?" he asked his navigator. 18 days at maximum burn, Captain." Jake nodded. 18 days to warn his species that they were no longer alone in the universe and that their new neighbors were hostile. He hoped it would be enough time for Earth to prepare for what was coming. In the depths of space, the alien fleet continued its journey toward the small blue planet. They had learned everything they needed to know about humanity from their brief encounter. These creatures were weak, with primitive technology and ships that could barely escape from a single scout vessel. The conquest of Earth would be easy. Fleet Admiral Vorgak stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Fong, watching the star charts that showed their approach to the human homeworld. The massive alien was over 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and gray skin that looked like armor plating. His yellow eyes glowed with confidence as he studied the tactical display. "How long until we reach their planet?" he asked his second-in-command, Captain Zek Mora. 6 days, Admiral," Zek Mora replied. "Our scouts report that the humans have only 12 warships protecting their world. Pathetic compared to our 50 vessels." Vorgak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The Kevvar Empire had conquered 43 different species across the galaxy. Each time, the story was the same. First came fear when the aliens saw the size of the Kevvar fleet. Then came desperate attempts at negotiation. Finally came surrender when they realized how outmatched they were. "Show me the intelligence report on their weapons," Vorgak ordered. A holographic display appeared in front of him, showing images captured from their brief encounter with the human exploration ship. The data made Vorgak even more confident about the coming battle. "They use primitive kinetic weapons," Zekmore explained. "Metal projectiles fired by chemical explosives. No energy shields detected on their vessels. Their largest ship appears to be only half the size of our smallest destroyer." Vorgak studied the images of human spacecraft. They looked crude and bulky compared to the elegant curves of Kethvar ships. Where Kethvar vessels glowed with contained energy fields, the human ships looked like flying scrap metal. "What about their numbers?" the Admiral asked. "Intelligence suggests they have fewer than 100 ships total scattered across their solar system. Most are cargo haulers or scientific vessels. Only 12 are equipped for combat." The numbers were so laughably small that Vorgak wondered if his intelligence officers had made a mistake. The Kethvar fleet alone contained more firepower than most species could muster from their entire civilization. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room deep beneath North American Defense Command. The walls were covered with screens showing the approach of the alien fleet. Every display told the same story. Humanity was about to face an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat in a straight fight. "Status report," Kate ordered as she entered the room. Colonel Jack Hayes, her chief of staff, pointed to the main display. 50 hostile vessels, Admiral. Our deep space monitors show them maintaining formation and heading directly for Earth. Estimated arrival in 6 days. Kate studied the enemy fleet composition. Each alien ship was massive, bristling with weapon ports and surrounded by what appeared to be energy shielding. Their own 12 warships looked like toys in comparison. "What about Captain Morrison's report on their weapons?" she asked. "Plasma-based energy beams, Admiral." They destroyed the Jupiter station with a single shot. Our intelligence analysts estimate their firepower is at least 10 times greater than our largest ships. Kate nodded grimly. The numbers didn't lie. In a direct confrontation, the human fleet would be annihilated in minutes. But Kate hadn't risen to command Earth space forces by accepting defeat easily. "Where's Captain Brooks?" she asked. "The Defender is currently in high orbit, Admiral." Captain Ryan Brooks reports all ships ready for combat. Ryan Brooks was the youngest captain in the fleet at 35 years old, but he'd earned his position through tactical brilliance rather than politics. His ship, the U.S. Defender, was humanity's flagship and most powerful vessel. Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Fong, Vorgak was intercepting human communications. The Kefvar had broken human encryption codes within hours, and now they could listen to every desperate transmission between Earth's military forces. "Listen to this," Zek Morris said, playing back a captured message. It was from the human admiral to one of her captains. "We can't possibly win this fight, Ryan. They outnumber us 4-1, and each of their ships is more powerful than anything we have." Vorgak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Fear was always the first stage. Soon would come the attempts at negotiation, then surrender. "Admiral," called out a communications officer. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're trying to make contact." "Put it through," Vorgak ordered. The transmission was from the human admiral herself. Her face appeared on the main screen, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and worried eyes. She looked exactly like what Vorgak expected from a member of an inferior species. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of Earth Defense Command." She began. "We wish to establish peaceful diplomatic relations with your people. Surely we can resolve any differences through negotiation rather than violence." The bridge crew of the Eternal Fong erupted in laughter. It was always the same. When faced with superior firepower, the weak species always beg for mercy. "Shall I respond, Admiral?" asked the communications officer. "Why waste time?" Vorgak replied. "Let them sweat for a few more days. Fear will make them more willing to surrender when we arrive." But Admiral Sullivan wasn't just broadcasting surrender offers, encoded transmissions that the aliens couldn't decrypt. She was issuing orders to every human ship in the solar system. "Protocol 7 is now in effect," she transmitted to Captain Brooks on the Defender. "All ships are to assume defensive positions according to the prepared plan." Protocol 7 was something the aliens knew nothing about. For the past 5 years, ever since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel, Earth's military leaders had been preparing for exactly this scenario. They knew that humanity's first contact with aliens might not be peaceful. Captain Maria Santos received her orders aboard the U.S. Valiant. Her ship was to broadcast fake surrender transmissions while positioning itself for a specific tactical maneuver. The aliens were listening to human communications, so Santos made sure to sound properly terrified. "Admiral, this is the Valiant," she transmitted on an open channel. "We're requesting permission to retreat to Earth's outer moon. Our weapons are no match for their energy shields." Similar transmissions came from every ship in the human fleet. To anyone listening, it sounded like a military force in complete panic, scrambling for safety rather than preparing to fight. Vorgak was pleased by what he heard. The humans were already breaking formation and falling back toward their homeworld. Some were even broadcasting offers to surrender without a fight. "Maintain our current approach," he ordered. "Let them run. It will make the final victory even sweeter." The Kefvar fleet continued toward Earth in their standard battle formation, a technique that had crushed every enemy they'd ever faced. The larger ships formed the center, with smaller vessels spread out in a wide line to prevent any enemy from escaping. What Vorgak didn't realize was that his perfect formation was exactly what the humans had been hoping for. Every detail of the alien approach was being recorded and analyzed by Earth's tactical computers. As the enemy fleet drew closer to Earth, Kate Sullivan allowed herself a small smile. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they weren't even bothering to scout ahead or vary their approach. They were flying straight into the most carefully prepared trap in human history. In just 6 days, the Kefvar Empire would learn that sometimes the species that looks weakest can be the most dangerous of all. deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Captain Lisa Adams floated silently in the command chair of the UES Ghost. Her ship was humanity's most advanced stealth vessel, invisible to almost any sensor system ever created. For the past 3 days, she had been shadowing the alien fleet, gathering intelligence that would soon prove crucial to Earth's survival. "Captain," whispered her sensor operator, Lieutenant Tom Brady, "I'm getting detailed scans of their hull composition. These readings are incredible." Lisa looked at the data streaming across her screens. The alien ships were even more advanced than Earth's initial estimates had suggested. Their hulls were made from some kind of crystalline metal that could absorb and redirect energy attacks. More importantly, they were surrounded by powerful energy shields designed to stop plasma weapons and particle beams. "What about kinetic resistance?" Lisa asked quietly. Tom ran his analysis software and shook his head. "That's the interesting part, Captain. Their shields are almost entirely focused on stopping energy weapons. They have very little protection against solid projectiles." Lisa smiled. The aliens had made the same mistake that many advanced civilizations made. They had become too specialized. Their technology was perfect for fighting other energy weapon users, but they had forgotten about more primitive attack methods. Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Parker stood in the massive underground facility that housed humanity's most secret weapons program. Alex was the head of advanced combat systems, and for the past 5 years he had been preparing for exactly this moment. "Status report," he called out as he walked between rows of technicians working frantically at their stations. "All railgun systems are online and loaded," reported his chief engineer, Commander Beth Wells. "We got 200 rounds of depleted uranium penetrators ready for the first salvo." Alex nodded and moved to the next station. The railgun was humanity's most powerful kinetic weapon, a magnetic accelerator that could fire dense metal slugs at nearly 10% of light speed. Each projectile carried enough energy to punch through a mountain. "What about the gravitational torpedoes?" Alex asked. Dr. Jennifer Cole looked up from her control panel with excitement in her eyes. "All 12 units are armed and ready, sir. The gravity field generators are stable, and the targeting computers have been loaded with the enemy fleet positions." The gravitational torpedo was Alex's masterpiece, a weapon that didn't just destroy enemy ships, but actually manipulated space and time around them. When detonated, it created a localized gravity well strong enough to crush anything within a kilometer radius. "And the nuclear missiles?" Alex continued. 600 Mark 7 warheads ready for deployment," reported Lieutenant Colonel Danny White. "Each one carries a 50 megaton yield with adaptive targeting systems. They can track and engage moving targets even in the middle of a space battle." Alex felt a surge of pride as he looked around the facility. The aliens thought humanity was primitive, but they were about to discover that human ingenuity could be just as deadly as advanced technology. Meanwhile, on the UES Defender, Captain Ryan Brooks was meeting with his senior officers in the ship's briefing room. The Defender was humanity's flagship, and it would lead the coming battle against impossible odds. "Engineering report," Ryan said to his chief engineer, Commander Nick Johnson. Nick was a big man with grease-stained hands and a genius-level understanding of spacecraft systems. "All systems are running at peak efficiency, Captain. The new adaptive armor plating is installed and tested. We can take a lot more punishment than the enemy expects." The adaptive armor was another human innovation. Instead of trying to stop enemy attacks with brute force, it was designed to spread the impact across the entire hull and dissipate energy through a network of heat sinks and shock absorbers. "Weapon status?" Ryan asked his tactical officer. "All railguns loaded and ready, sir," reported Commander Carol Stone. "We've also got 40 nuclear-tipped missiles in the tubes and full magazines for our point-of-fence systems." Ryan looked around the table at his officers. They were scared. Anyone with half a brain would be scared facing an enemy fleet 5 times their size. But they were also determined to protect their home world, no matter what the cost. "Remember," Ryan said, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive long enough to show these aliens that humanity won't go down without taking some of them with us." Back in the asteroid belt, Captain Lisa Adams watched as the alien fleet began to change formation. They were spreading out into their attack pattern, exactly as Earth's tactical computers had predicted. Send a coded burst transmission to Fleet Command. Lisa ordered. Enemy formation Alpha 77 confirmed. All ships maintaining course and speed toward Earth. The message was transmitted using a quantum encryption system that the aliens couldn't possibly break. Within minutes, it reached Admiral Kate Sullivan's command center on Earth. Kate studied the tactical display, showing both fleets. The alien ships were moving exactly according to their established patterns, with no sign that they suspected any kind of trap. Captain Morrison was right, she said to Colonel Jack Hayes. They're overconfident. They think this will be easy. Jake Morrison, the captain who had escaped from the first contact disaster, stood beside the Admiral studying the enemy formation. They're not even bothering to scout ahead, Admiral. They're flying in a straight line like they're on parade. Kate nodded. The aliens' arrogance would be their downfall. They were so sure of their superiority that they weren't taking basic military precautions. Signal all ships, Kate ordered. Execute Protocol 7 Alpha in 36 hours. Tell Captain Brooks that the fate of humanity depends on perfect timing. Across the solar system, human warships began moving into their final positions. To any alien sensors watching, it looked like a desperate retreat toward Earth. The human ships appeared to be panicking, breaking formation and running for home. But appearances could be deceiving. Each ship was moving to a precise location calculated by Earth's best tactical computers. The retreat was actually the most complex military maneuver in human history. Commander Steve Carter aboard the UES Titan was positioning his ship near Earth's moon, where it would have a clear shot of the alien fleet when they arrived. His ship carried 3 of the new gravitational torpedoes, and Steve had spent months training his crew for this exact moment. Remember, he told his weapons officer, Lieutenant Paul Davis, we only get one shot with these things. The enemy won't know what hit them the first time, but they'll adapt quickly if we miss. Paul nodded nervously. He was only 26 years old, and the responsibility of operating humanity's most advanced weapon system was almost overwhelming. But he had been chosen for his quick reflexes and steady hands under pressure. As the alien fleet drew closer to Earth, more human ships took their positions. The UES Valiant, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, moved into position behind a cluster of asteroids. The UES Liberty, still commanded by Captain Jake Morrison despite his earlier encounter with the aliens, stationed itself near one of Earth's orbital defense platforms. Each ship carried humanity's most advanced weapon systems, but they also carried something else, the determination of a species fighting for its survival. The aliens might have superior technology, but humans had something that couldn't be measured by sensors or calculated by computers. They had the desperate courage of a people with nothing left to lose. Admiral Vorgak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human ships scatter like frightened animals. Everything was going exactly as he had predicted. The weak species was running home to hide behind their planet's defenses. Maintain formation, he ordered his fleet. We'll be in weapons range in 18 hours. Prepare for a quick victory. But 18 hours was exactly how long humanity needed to spring the most carefully planned ambush in the history of warfare. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center beneath Earth's surface, watching as red dots representing the alien fleet move steadily closer to her homeworld. Around her, dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations, coordinating the most complex military operation in human history. Admiral, called out Colonel Jack Hayes, all ships report ready for Protocol Omega. Kate nodded. Protocol Omega was humanity's last desperate plan, a strategy designed to look like cowardice, while actually positioning every human asset for maximum effectiveness. If it worked, they might have a chance. If it failed, humanity would be extinct within hours. Signal Captain Brooks, she ordered. Begin the performance. On the bridge of the U.S. Defender, Captain Ryan Brooks received the coded transmission and turned to his communications officer. Amy, broadcast our surrender offer on all frequencies. Make it sound convincing. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez began transmitting what appeared to be a desperate plea for mercy. Alien Fleet, this is the U.S. Defender, flagship of Earth's defense forces. We are prepared to discuss terms of surrender to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Please respond. The transmission was heard by every ship in both fleets. To the aliens, it sounded like exactly what they expected, a weak species begging for mercy when faced with superior firepower. But to human crews listening in, it was a signal to begin the final phase of their trap. Captain Maria Santos aboard the UES Valiant received a coded message hidden within the surrender broadcast and immediately began her part of the deception. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over her ship's intercom. "We are implementing retreat pattern Delta 7. Make it look convincing." The Valiant began what appeared to be a panic retreat toward Earth's moon, broadcasting fake emergency messages about engine failures and crew injuries. To alien sensors, it looked like a damaged ship limping home in defeat. But Maria was actually positioning her vessel at the exact coordinates specified in Protocol Omega. Her ship carried some of humanity's most advanced sensor equipment, and from her new position, she would have a perfect view of the battlefield when the fighting began. Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis stood in the control room of Defense Platform 7, one of 12 massive weapon stations hidden throughout Earth's solar system. For the past 2 years, these platforms have been disguised as mining operations or scientific research stations. The aliens had no idea that each one contained enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Status report: Paul called out to his crew. All railgun batteries loaded and targeted. Reported his weapons officer. Nuclear missile tubes 1 through 20 are armed and ready. Gravitational torpedo bay is standing by. Paul studied the tactical display, showing the approaching alien fleet. They were flying in a perfect formation, completely unaware that they were about to fly through the most heavily defended region of space in human history. The alien fleet commander, Admiral Vorgak, was pleased with how easily the humans were giving up. From his flagship's bridge, he watched their ships scatter and retreat. Several were broadcasting surrender offers, while others appear to be suffering from mechanical failures. Their largest ship is offering to negotiate, reported his communications officer, Captain Zekmora. Should we respond? Vorgak laughed. Let them wait. Fear will make them more agreeable when we finally decide to accept their surrender. The alien fleet continued its steady approach toward Earth, maintaining the same formation they had used to conquer dozens of other species. They had no reason to change tactics. Their method had never failed before. But humanity had been studying alien tactics for months, ever since Captain Jake Morrison's initial encounter. Every movement of the enemy fleet had been analyzed and predicted by Earth's best military minds. On the bridge of the stealth ship UES Ghost, Captain Lisa Adams watched the alien formation through her sensors. "They're maintaining perfect spacing," she reported to her crew. "Distance between ships exactly 2 kilometers, just like our intelligence predicted." The aliens' rigid formation was actually a weakness, though they didn't realize it. Their ships were positioned to support each other against energy weapon attacks, but the formation also meant that a single powerful weapon could potentially damage multiple vessels. "Send position update to Fleet Command," Lisa ordered. All enemy vessels confirmed in Target Zone Alpha. The message was transmitted back to Earth using quantum encryption that the aliens couldn't detect. Within seconds, Admiral Sullivan had the exact position of every enemy ship. All platforms report ready. Colonel Hayes informed her. Captain Davis confirms that Defense Platform 7 has a clear shot at their flagship. Kate studied the tactical display one more time. Everything depended on precise timing. If they began the attack too early, the aliens would have time to adapt their tactics. Too late, and the enemy would be close enough to Earth to cause massive civilian casualties. "Begin final positioning," she ordered. All ships execute movement pattern Omega 5. Across the solar system, human warships began what appeared to be their final retreat. The UES Liberty, still commanded by Captain Jake Morrison, broadcast a desperate message about losing engine power. The UES Titan, under Commander Steve Carter, reported that half its crew was requesting transfer to non-combat vessels. To the aliens, it looked like the complete collapse of human military resistance. But every movement was carefully calculated. Each ship was moving to a position where it could inflict maximum damage when the trap was sprung. Captain Tony Miller commanded the UES Ranger, humanity's fastest attack ship. His vessel was designed for hit-and-run tactics, and he was positioning it for a crucial role in the coming battle. Engineering! This is the captain, he called over the intercom. I need every bit of speed you can give me when the shooting starts. His chief engineer, Lieutenant Beth Harper, was already pushing the ship's fusion drive beyond its normal limits. We can give you 30% over maximum rated speed, Captain, but only for about 20 minutes. That should be enough, Tony replied. His ship's job was to create confusion in the alien formation by attacking from an unexpected angle. Speed would be more important than armor for what he had planned. The alien fleet was now just 6 hours from Earth. Admiral Vorgak could see the blue planet growing larger on his main screen. Soon, another species would kneel before the might of the Kethvar Empire. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Prepare for orbital bombardment. We'll destroy their major cities first, then accept the surrender of any survivors. But as the aliens prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory, humanity was making final preparations for the greatest military surprise in galactic history. On Earth, Dr. Alex Parker was in the Underground Weapons Control Center, overseeing the activation of humanity's most secret weapons. All gravitational torpedo guidance systems are online, he reported to Admiral Sullivan. Targeting computers have locked onto the enemy flagship and escort vessels. In hidden bunkers across Earth's moon, massive railgun installations were being brought to full power. These weapons have been under construction for 3 years, disguised as mining equipment to avoid detection by alien scouts. Lieutenant Colonel Danny White stood in the primary missile command center, watching as 600 nuclear warheads came online. Each missile was equipped with adaptive AI systems that could track and intercept enemy vessels even in the chaos of battle. Admiral, he reported to Kate Sullivan, all nuclear forces report ready for immediate launch on your command. Kate took a deep breath. In a few hours, humanity would either achieve an impossible victory or face complete extinction. There would be no middle ground. Send the final coded transmission to all ships, she ordered. When the aliens reach Marker Point 7, we spring the trap. Tell every captain that the survival of our species depends on the next few hours. As her message raced across the solar system, every human in space felt the weight of what was coming. They were about to fight the most important battle in human history, against an enemy that had never been defeated. But humanity had one advantage the aliens didn't know about. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their very right to exist. Sometimes, that was enough to overcome any odds. The alien fleet reached the outer edge of Earth's defensive perimeter at exactly 1432 Universal Time. Admiral Vorgak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his main screen. Around him, his officers prepared for what they expected to be a quick and easy victory. All ships report ready for bombardment, announced Captain Zekmora. Plasma cannons are charged in targeting the major population centers. Vorgak smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Begin the attack. Show these humans the price of resisting the Kethvar Empire. The alien fleet opened fire with devastating plasma beams that lit up the darkness of space. Brilliant streams of energy lanced toward what appeared to be fleeing human ships. The aliens expected to see their enemies destroyed in the first salvo. Instead, something impossible happened. Captain Ryan Brooks watched from the bridge of the U.S. Defender as alien plasma beams struck his ship's hull. The energy weapon should have melted through his armor like a hot knife through butter. Instead, the adaptive plating absorbed most of the impact and spread the remaining energy across the ship's entire structure. Damage report. Ryan called out. Hull breaches on Deck 7 and 12. Reported as damage control officer, but the adaptive armor held. We're still fully operational. Ryan couldn't help but grin. The aliens had just learned their first lesson about fighting humans. Sometimes the old ways of doing things work better than advanced technology. All weapons, return fire, he ordered. The Defender's railgun batteries opened fire with a sound like thunder. Dense slugs of depleted uranium accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. The projectiles were invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast for human senses to track. The first salvo struck the alien flagship's energy shields and passed straight through them like they weren't even there. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds. The uranium slugs punched through the alien hull with devastating effect. On the bridge of the Eternal Fawn, Admiral Vorgak was thrown to the deck as his ship shuddered under impact. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel as atmosphere vented from dozens of hull breaches. "Damage report," he roared as he pulled himself back to his feet. Multiple hull breaches on decks 4 through 9. His damage control officer reported in shock. How did their weapons penetrate our shields? Vorgak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human weapons weren't energy-based at all. They were firing solid projectiles at impossible speeds. His shields, designed to stop the most advanced plasma cannons in the galaxy, were completely useless against simple metal slugs. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Adapt targeting computers for kinetic projectiles." But the human attack was just beginning. Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms began revealing themselves. What had appeared to be mining stations and research facilities suddenly opened massive gun ports and began firing. Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis stood in the control room of Defense Platform 7, watching as his railgun batteries locked onto target after target. "Fire at will," he commanded. Streams of uranium projectiles erupted from hidden weapons emplacements throughout the asteroid belt. The aliens found themselves caught in a crossfire from directions they hadn't even known were defended. Captain Maria Santos aboard the UES Valiant was monitoring the battle from her position near Earth's moon. Her sensors showed the alien formation beginning to break apart as ships tried to avoid the devastating kinetic bombardment. "They're panicking," she reported to Admiral Sullivan over a coded channel. "Their tight formation is falling apart." Kate Sullivan smiled grimly as she watched the battle from her command center deep beneath Earth's surface. The first phase of her plan was working perfectly. The aliens had expected to face primitive opponents, and they were completely unprepared for humanity's hybrid warfare approach. "Signal Captain Carter," she ordered. "Execute Omega-7." Commander Steve Carter received the coded transmission aboard the UES Titan and turned to his weapons officer. "Paul, you have permission to fire the gravitational torpedo. Target their command ship." Lieutenant Paul Davis had trained for this moment for 2 years, but his hands still shook as he armed humanity's most advanced weapon. The gravitational torpedo was untested in actual combat, and no one knew exactly how much damage it would cause. "Torpedo armed and ready, sir," he reported. "Fire," Steve ordered. The gravitational torpedo launched from the Titan's forward tube and streaked toward the alien flagship. Unlike the railgun projectiles, this weapon was designed to manipulate the fundamental forces of physics themselves. Admiral Vorgak was still trying to restore order to his fleet when a science officer suddenly screamed in terror. "Admiral, massive gravitational anomaly detected. It's heading straight for us." "Impossible," Vorgak replied. "No species has ever developed gravitational weapons." But as he watched his sensors, he saw something that defied everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human weapon was actually bending space-time around itself, creating a localized gravity well that grew stronger as it approached. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace," he ordered. It was too late. The gravitational torpedo detonated just 500 meters from the Eternal Fawn, creating a gravity field so intense that it crushed 3 alien ships like tin cans. The flagship itself was badly damaged, with entire sections of its hull collapsed inward by forces beyond imagination. Across the alien fleet, panic began to spread. Their enemy wasn't supposed to have weapons like this. According to all their intelligence, humans were a primitive species with crude technology, but the reality of battle was proving very different. Captain Tony Miller chose that moment to begin his attack run. The UES Ranger came screaming out of the asteroid belt at maximum speed, its fusion drive pushed beyond all safety limits. "All weapons, continuous fire," he ordered. The Ranger was humanity's fastest ship, and Tony used that speed to fly straight through the alien formation. His railguns fired constantly, targeting weapon ports and shield generators on every enemy vessel he passed. The aliens tried to track his ship with their plasma cannons, but the Ranger was moving too fast and changing course too frequently. Their energy beams missed by hundreds of meters, while Tony's kinetic weapons found their targets with deadly accuracy. "Direct hits on 4 enemy destroyers," reported his weapons officer. "They're losing shield power across their entire fleet, but the aliens weren't helpless. As the initial shock wore off, they began to adapt their tactics. Admiral Vorgak, despite his badly damaged flagship, managed to restore communications with his fleet. "All ships, spread out," he ordered. "Use evasive patterns and concentrate fire on their largest vessels. These humans are more dangerous than we thought, but they're still outnumbered 5-1. The alien fleet began to regroup, using their superior numbers to surround the human ships. Their plasma cannons might not be effective against adaptive armor, but concentrated fire from multiple directions could still overwhelm any defense. Captain Ryan Brooks found himself under attack from 6 different alien ships at once. Energy beams crisscrossed around his vessel as he tried to maneuver away from the encircling enemies. "Hull breaches on multiple decks," reported his damage control officer. "The adaptive armor is reaching its limits." Ryan knew that his ship couldn't take much more punishment. The aliens were learning to concentrate their fire, and even the best armor had its breaking point. "Signal Admiral Sullivan," he ordered. "Tell her we need reinforcements, or this battle is going to end very badly for us." But Kate Sullivan was already implementing the next phase of her plan. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons that the aliens hadn't even discovered yet. The real battle was just beginning. "Signal all missile platforms," she ordered. "Launch everything we have. Show these aliens what human ingenuity can really accomplish." Lieutenant Colonel Danny White received the order and began the largest missile launch in human history. 600 nuclear warheads, each one guided by advanced AI systems, erupted from hidden launchers across Earth's solar system. The aliens were about to discover that humans had one more surprise waiting for them, and this one might end the battle once and for all. The space around Earth erupted in brilliant nuclear fire as 600 warheads detonated almost simultaneously. The alien fleet, caught completely off guard by the massive missile barrage, found themselves surrounded by miniature suns that turned the darkness of space into blazing day. Admiral Vorgak struggled to see through the blinding flashes, lighting up his bridge. His damaged flagship shook violently as nuclear explosions detonated all around it. The Kefvar had energy shields, but they were designed to stop directed energy weapons, not the massive pressure waves and radiation bursts from nuclear detonations. "Damage report," he roared over the alarm, screaming throughout his ship. "Hull breaches on all decks," his damage control officer shouted back. "Radiation levels are climbing past safe limits. We're losing life support on the lower sections." Vorgak stared at his tactical display in growing horror. The missile attack had crippled nearly half his fleet. Ships that had been undamaged moments before were now drifting powerless in space, their crews dead or dying from radiation exposure. "How did they coordinate such a massive attack?" demanded Captain Zek Mora. "Our sensors detected no missile launchers." The answer came from Captain Amy Rodriguez, aboard the UES Valiant. She had been watching the battle from her concealed position, and now revealed the truth to Admiral Sullivan back on Earth. "All hidden platforms have been revealed," she reported. "The aliens had no idea how many weapons we had positioned throughout the system." Kate Sullivan allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the tactical display. The aliens had made the classic mistake of underestimating their enemy. They had seen Earth's 12 warships and assumed that was the extent of human military power. They had no idea that humanity had spent 5 years preparing for this exact scenario. "Signal Defense Platform 12, she ordered. "Captain Williams, you're clear to activate the orbital weapons network." Captain Robert Williams had been waiting for this moment ever since the alien fleet entered the solar system. His platform, hidden inside what appeared to be a large asteroid, contained the most powerful weapons in humanity's arsenal. All gravitational torpedo tubes loaded. He reported to his crew, "Target the enemy formation center. Fire when ready." 3 more gravitational torpedoes launched from a hidden platform, their exotic warheads creating ripples in space-time itself as they approached the alien fleet. The weapons were invisible to normal sensors, detectable only by the way they bent light around their gravity fields. Admiral Vorgak's science officer detected the gravitational anomalies just seconds before impact. "Admiral, more gravitational weapons incoming." "Impossible," Vorgak replied. "No species should have that many exotic weapons." But impossible or not, the torpedo struck the center of the formation with devastating effect. The first weapon created a gravity well that crushed 2 destroyers and severely damaged a heavy cruiser. The second torpedo detonated between 3 alien ships, creating gravitational shears that tore their hulls apart like paper. The third weapon struck an enemy battleship directly, compressing the massive vessel into a sphere of twisted metal barely 100 meters across. The alien formation, which had seemed so overwhelming just minutes before, was now scattered and broken. Ships drifted powerless in space, their crews either dead or struggling to make emergency repairs. Of the 50 vessels that had begun the attack, fewer than 30 were still combat effective, but the aliens were far from defeated. Admiral Vorgak, despite his heavy losses, still commanded a force larger than humanity's entire fleet. And now that he understood the true nature of the threat he faced, he began adapting his tactics. All ships, emergency dispersion pattern, he ordered. Maintain at least 10 kilometers distance between vessels. Target their hidden weapons platforms and destroy them before they can fire again. The remaining alien ships spread out across a much wider area, making it harder for human weapons to target multiple vessels at once. Their plasma cannons began focusing on the revealed defense platforms, trying to eliminate humanity's most powerful weapons. Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis watched from Defense Platform 7 as alien energy beams began converging on his position. "All hands, prepare for incoming fire," he announced over the intercom. The platform shields, designed to withstand anything short of direct nuclear hit, began glowing under the intense plasma bombardment. Warning alarms sounded as the energy levels climbed toward dangerous levels. "Shield generators at maximum output," reported his engineering officer. "We can't take much more of this." Paul made a quick decision. If his platform was going to be destroyed anyway, he would make sure it took some aliens with it. "Load all remaining gravitational torpedoes," he ordered. "We're going to make this count." Meanwhile, Captain Tony Miller was using the U.S. Ranger's incredible speed to harry the alien fleet from multiple directions. His ship darted between enemy vessels like an angry wasp, striking at weapon systems and shield generators before vanishing back into the asteroid belt. "Their formation is completely broken," he reported to Admiral Sullivan, "but they're learning to track our movements. We can't keep this up much longer." Kate Sullivan studied the tactical display and made a crucial decision. The battle was reaching its critical phase. Both sides had taken heavy losses, but the outcome was still in doubt. It was time to reveal humanity's final surprise. "Signal Captain Brooks," she ordered. "Implement Protocol Omega-9. All ships are converged on the enemy flagship." Ryan Brooks received the coded transmission and felt his heart skip a beat. Protocol Omega-9 was humanity's most desperate tactic, a coordinated attack by every surviving human ship, regardless of the cost. It was designed to cripple the enemy command structure, even if it meant sacrificing the entire human fleet. "All ships, form up on a defender," he broadcast on an open channel. "We're going to finish this." The surviving human warships began converging on Admiral Vorgak's damaged flagship. The U.S. Liberty, still commanded by Captain Jake Morrison, emerged from behind Earth's moon with all weapons blazing. The U.S. Titan, despite heavy damage in the earlier fighting, followed close behind with Commander Steve Carter pushing his engines beyond their rated limits. Captain Maria Santos brought the U.S. Valiant out of its hiding place in the asteroid belt, her railguns targeting the alien flagship's bridge section. Even the small U.S. Ranger, its hull scarred by enemy fire, joined the attack despite Captain Tony Miller's ship being heavily outgunned. "All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessel," Ryan ordered. "Take out their admiral, and the rest of their fleet will lose coordination." The combined human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Railgun projectiles, nuclear missiles, and the last few gravitational torpedoes all converged on Eternal Fong. The alien flagship, already damaged from the earlier fighting, couldn't withstand the concentrated assault. Admiral Vorgak watched in horror as his bridge began collapsing around him. Emergency lights flickered as power systems failed throughout his ship. The proud vessel that had conquered dozens of species was being torn apart by weapons the Kefvar had dismissed as primitive. "Admiral," his communications officer shouted over the sound of rending metal. "Hull breach in the command section. We're losing atmospheric pressure. Vorgak looked around his ruined bridge and realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had been wrong. The humans hadn't defeated him with superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had won through cunning creativity and sheer desperate courage. "Signal the fleet," he gasped as emergency systems sealed the breach around him. "All ships, withdraw at a minimum safe distance. We need to reassess our enemy's capabilities." But even as the alien fleet began to retreat, humanity wasn't finished with them yet. Captain Robert Williams aboard Defense Platform 12 had saved his most powerful weapon for this exact moment. Gravitational torpedo armed and ready, he reported to his crew. Target, the center of their retreating formation. The weapon that launched from his platform was different from the others. Larger, more powerful, and designed to create the most massive gravity well that human science could produce. As it approached the alien fleet, space itself began to warp around it. Admiral Vorgak's science officer detected the massive gravitational anomaly approaching his fleet and realized with terror what was about to happen. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. Now!" But it was too late. The supergravitational torpedo detonated in the middle of the retreating alien formation, creating a gravity well so intense that it pulled 5 enemy ships together and crushed them into a single ball of compressed metal. The remaining alien vessels, their formations shattered and their morale broken, fled toward the outer edge of the solar system. Behind them, the human fleet regrouped around Earth, battered but victorious. Admiral Kate Sullivan looked at the tactical display showing the retreating alien ships and allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had faced impossible odds and emerged triumphant, but she knew the battle wasn't over yet. It was time to show these aliens what humans could really do when they were fighting for their survival. Admiral Vorgak stood in what remained of his flagship's bridge, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet of 50 warships had been reduced to barely 20 functional vessels, and those were scattered across the outer edge of the solar system in full retreat. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked the surviving officers. Captain Zekmora, her gray skin marked with cuts from flying debris, consulted her damage control panel. 19 ships still combat ready, Admiral. 6 more with minor damage that can be repaired. The rest are either destroyed or drifting powerless. Vorgak couldn't believe what had happened. The Kethvar Empire had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy, and they had never faced resistance like this. The humans had turned what should have been an easy victory into a devastating defeat. "Sir," called out his communications officer, "we're receiving signals from the human fleet. They're offering us terms for surrender." Vorgak's yellow eyes flashed with anger. "Surrender? They want us to surrender? We still outnumber them." But even as he spoke, he knew the numbers didn't tell the whole story. The humans had shown tactical abilities that no previous enemy had possessed. They had used deception, hidden weapons, and coordination that seemed almost impossible for such a young species. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was implementing the final phase of her battle plan. The aliens were retreating, but they weren't defeated. If she let them regroup and call for reinforcements, humanity would face an even larger invasion fleet in the future. "Signal Captain Miller," she ordered. "Begin harassment operations. Don't let them organize a counterattack." Captain Tony Miller received the orders aboard the U.S. Ranger and grinned despite his exhaustion. His ship had taken heavy damage during the battle, but the fusion drives were still operational and his weapon systems were functioning. "All ships, follow my lead," he broadcast to the other surviving human vessels. "We're going to show these aliens how humans fight when we're protecting our home." The human fleet began what appeared to be a chaotic pursuit of the retreating aliens, but there was nothing random about their movements. Each ship followed a carefully planned course designed to maximize confusion in the enemy ranks. The U.S. Liberty, still under Captain Jake Morrison's command, used Earth's gravity well to slingshot around the planet and approached the alien rear guard from an unexpected angle. Jake had learned orbital mechanics during his years as an exploration captain, and now he used that knowledge as a weapon. Coming up behind their slowest ship, he reported to Admiral Sullivan. "Initiating attack run." Jake's railguns opened fire on an alien destroyer that was struggling with engine damage. The dense uranium projectiles punched through the enemy's weakened shields and hull, causing massive internal explosions that lit up the darkness of space. Meanwhile, Captain Maria Santos was demonstrating why the UES Valiant was considered the most maneuverable ship in the human fleet. She used the gravitational fields of Jupiter's moons to change direction in ways that seemed to defy physics, appearing behind enemy ships when they expected her to be in front of them. "They can't predict our movements," she reported to Fleet Command. "Their tactical computers are designed for conventional space warfare. They don't know how to handle three-dimensional combat in a gravity well." The aliens were discovering that their standard battle formations were useless against an enemy that could use planets and moons as tactical advantages. Every time they tried to establish a defensive line, human ships would appear from an unexpected direction and tear holes in their formation. Admiral Vorgak attempted to rally his remaining ships for a counterattack. All vessels formed a defensive screen around the heavy cruisers. "We'll make a coordinated strike at their largest ship." But even as his fleet began to regroup, the humans launched their most devastating psychological attack yet. Lieutenant Commander Beth Harper, the electronic warfare specialist aboard the UES Ranger, had been analyzing alien communications throughout the battle. "Captain Miller," she reported, "I've broken their command encryption. I can not only intercept their orders, I can send false ones." Tony Miller's eyes lit up with the possibility. "Do it. Turn their own command structure against them." Beth began broadcasting false orders using Admiral Vorgak's own command codes. Ships that were supposed to attack the human left flank received orders to withdraw. Vessels moving to protect the alien flagship were told to pursue a non-existent human force in the opposite direction. The result was complete chaos in the alien formation. Ships began moving in random directions as captains tried to follow contradictory orders. Some alien vessels even began firing on each other when they couldn't determine which commands were real. "What's happened to my fleet?" Vorgak roared as he watched his carefully planned counterattack fall apart. His communications officer was frantically trying to restore order to the command network. "Sir, someone is broadcasting false orders using your command codes. Our ships don't know which signals are real." Vorgak realized with growing horror that the humans had not only defeated his fleet in direct combat, they had turned his own technology against him. These creatures were more dangerous than any enemy the Kethvar had ever faced. But the humans weren't finished demonstrating their tactical superiority. Captain Ryan Brooks, despite the heavy damage his flagship had taken, was preparing for the most audacious maneuver of the entire battle. "Engineering," he called over the intercom. "I need everything you can give me from the engines. We're going to try something that's either brilliant or completely insane." Commander Nick Johnson, his chief engineer, looked up from his damaged control station with concern. "Captain, our hull integrity is down to 60%. If you push the engines too hard, we might break apart." Ryan studied the tactical display, showing the scattered alien fleet. They were trying to regroup around their remaining heavy ships, but their formation was still confused by the false orders Beth Harper was broadcasting. "Load our last gravitational torpedo," he ordered his weapons officer. "We're going to end this battle right now." The UES Defender began accelerating toward the center of the alien formation at maximum speed. To the aliens, it looked like a suicide attack by a desperate enemy. But Ryan had calculated the orbital mechanics perfectly. As his ship approached the alien fleet, he used Jupiter's massive gravitational field to execute a slingshot maneuver that would have been impossible for the heavier alien vessels. The Defender whipped around the gas giant and emerged at incredible speed, approaching the enemy formation from directly above where their weapons couldn't track effectively. "Fire the gravitational torpedo," Ryan ordered when his ship reached the optimal position. The exotic weapon launched in the Defender's forward tube and streaked toward the center of the alien formation. But this time, the humans had modified the warhead for maximum psychological impact rather than pure destructive power. Instead of creating a single massive gravity well, the torpedo split into multiple smaller warheads that detonated in sequence around the alien fleet. The result was a series of gravitational waves that didn't destroy the enemy ships, but tossed them around like toys in the hands of an angry child. The alien crews, already demoralized by their heavy losses, watched in terror as their massive warship spun helplessly through space. Many of the Kethvar warriors, who had never experienced defeat in their lives, began to panic. All ships, Emergency jump to hyperspace. Admiral Vorgak ordered, his voice cracking with desperation. But the gravitational distortions made it impossible for the alien ships to form stable hyperspace fields. They were trapped in the solar system until the effects wore off, sitting helplessly while human ships surrounded them. Captain Tony Miller brought the U.S. Ranger alongside the alien flagship and opened a communication channel. Admiral Vorgak, this is Captain Miller of the human fleet. Your ships are disabled and surrounded. Surrender now, and we guarantee the safety of your crews. Vorgak stared at the communication screen in shock. The humans were offering him terms of surrender, something that had never happened in Kethvar military history. In every previous conquest, the defeated species had begged for mercy, not offered it to their conquerors. "Why aren't they destroying us?" he asked Captain Zekmora. His second-in-command looked equally confused. "I don't understand it either, Admiral. They have us completely at their mercy. Any other species would finish us off." But that was exactly what made humans different from every other species the Kethvar had encountered. Even in the moment of total victory, they chose compassion over revenge. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel from Earth. "Admiral Vorgak, this is Admiral Sullivan of Earth Defense Command. Your invasion has failed, but we don't want unnecessary bloodshed. Surrender your fleet, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war." Vorgak realized that he was facing something completely unprecedented in galactic history, an enemy that was not only tactically superior, but morally superior as well. The humans had defeated him not just through superior strategy, but through qualities the Kethvar had never valued: mercy, creativity, and the willingness to show restraint even in victory. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vorgak prepared to do something no Kethvar commander had ever done before: surrender to a species they had tried to conquer. The silence in space was broken only by the hum of damaged life support systems and the distant static of emergency broadcasts. Admiral Vorgak stood alone on the bridge of his crippled flagship, looking out at the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful invasion fleet in Kethvar history. Around him, the scattered remains of his ships drifted helplessly through the void. Some were completely destroyed, their crews dead among the twisted metal and frozen atmosphere. Others were damaged beyond repair, their survivors sending desperate distress signals that echoed across the battlefield. "Admiral," Captain Zekmora's voice was barely a whisper. "The humans are broadcasting surrender terms on all frequencies. They're offering medical assistance to our wounded." Vorgak could hardly believe what he was hearing. In all his years of conquest across the galaxy, no defeated enemy had ever offered aid to Kethvar forces. The pattern was always the same: resistance, defeat, and then either complete destruction or total submission. But these humans were different. Even now, with his fleet broken and helpless, they were following what they called the laws of war, concepts that seemed completely alien to the Kethvar military mind. On the bridge of the U.S. Defender, Captain Ryan Brooks watched his human rescue ships move carefully between the drifting alien vessels. His own ship was badly damaged, with hull breaches on 7 decks and life support failing in several sections, but his crew was already preparing to assist enemy survivors. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "Admiral Sullivan is requesting a direct channel to the alien commander." Ryan nodded. "Put her through." Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice filled the bridge with calm authority. "Admiral Vorgak, this is Admiral Sullivan of Earth Defense Command. Your invasion fleet has been defeated, but we take no joy in the loss of life on both sides. We offer you the opportunity to surrender with honor." The concept of surrendering with honor was something Vorgak had never heard before. In Kethvar culture, surrender meant complete disgrace and usually execution upon return to the Empire. But these humans seemed to be suggesting something entirely different. "What are your terms?" he asked, his voice heavy with the weight of defeat. Kate Sullivan consulted with her staff before responding. "Your surviving crew members will be treated as prisoners of war according to established galactic conventions. Your wounded will receive medical care alongside our own casualties. In exchange, you will provide us with information about your Empire's intentions toward Earth and assist in preventing future conflicts." Vorgak was stunned by the reasonableness of the terms. He had expected the humans to demand complete submission, the execution of senior officers, or the destruction of his remaining ships. Instead, they were treating him as if he were a fellow military professional rather than a conquered enemy. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Captain Tony Miller's voice came over the communication channel from the U.S. Ranger. "Then we'll be forced to destroy your remaining ships to protect our world. But we prefer not to. You've already lost this battle, Admiral. There's no point in losing more lives." Vorgak looked around his ruined bridge at the faces of his surviving officers. They were watching him with expressions he had never seen before in Kevvar eyes. Not just defeat, but something approaching respect for their conquerors. "Captain Zekmora," he said quietly, "what is your assessment of these humans?" His second-in-command was quiet for a long moment before answering. "They fight like no species we've ever encountered, Admiral. They use tactics we've never seen, weapons we didn't know existed, and strategies that seem almost impossible to predict. But more than that," she paused, struggling for words, "they show mercy to defeated enemies. I've never heard of such a thing." Vorgak made his decision. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "This is Admiral Vorgak. As fleet commander, I am ordering the surrender of all Kevvar forces in this system. All ships will power down their weapons and submit to human authority." The words felt strange in his mouth. No Kevvar admiral had ever spoken them before. But as he looked at the tactical display, showing the impossible victory the humans had achieved, he knew there was no other choice. Captain Jake Morrison aboard the U.S. Liberty was coordinating the rescue operations when the alien surrender was announced. His ship, which had started this entire conflict by fleeing from the first alien scout, was now collecting escape pods from destroyed enemy vessels. "Bring them aboard carefully," he ordered his crew. "These beings try to destroy our world, but they're still living creatures who deserve basic dignity." The rescued Kevvar warriors were amazed by their treatment. Instead of being thrown into brutal prison cells, they were given medical attention, food, and quarters that were clean and comfortable. Many had never experienced such treatment, even from their own military. Dr. Sarah Kim, the science officer from Captain Morrison's original crew, found herself treating wounded aliens alongside human casualties in the Liberty's medical bay. "Their physiology is different from ours," she reported to Admiral Sullivan, "but their wounds respond to standard treatment. They're not so different from us, really." As word of a human victory spread throughout the Kevvar fleet, something unprecedented began to happen. Individual alien captains started requesting private communications with their human counterparts, asking questions about tactics, technology, and military philosophy. Captain Maria Santos found herself in a detailed discussion with a young Kevvar commander about orbital mechanics and three-dimensional combat. "Your people fight in ways we never considered," the alien officer admitted. "We always use brute force and overwhelming numbers. You use intelligence and creativity." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was dealing with the broader implications of humanity's victory. Reports of the battle were already spreading throughout the galaxy via faster-than-light communication networks. For the first time in galactic history, someone had defeated a Kevvar invasion fleet. "Admiral," Colonel Jack Hayes reported, "we're receiving communications from over 30 different species. Most want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth immediately." Kate nodded. She had expected this. News of humanity's victory would change the balance of power throughout the known galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of Kevvar expansion would now see humans as potential allies or protectors. But the most significant change was happening among the Kevvar themselves. As alien crews were processed and interviewed, human intelligence officers discovered something remarkable. Many of the Kevvar warriors were questioning their empire's policies for the first time in their lives. Commander Steve Carter, still aboard the damaged U.S. Titan, was interviewing a group of alien prisoners when one of them asked an unexpected question. "Commander Carter," the young Kevvar officer said through a translation device, "why did you show mercy to us? In our culture, the strong destroy the weak. But you are clearly stronger than us, yet you choose to help rather than harm." Steve thought carefully before answering. "Because strength isn't just about the ability to destroy your enemies. Real strength is knowing when to fight and when to show compassion." We defeated your fleet not because we want to kill you, but because we want to protect our families. The concept seemed to fascinate the alien prisoners. They began asking more questions about human society, military organization, and the philosophical foundations of human warfare. Many seemed genuinely curious about a species that could be both incredibly deadly and remarkably merciful. Admiral Vorgak himself was struggling with these same questions as he was transferred to a human facility on Earth's moon. The prison was unlike anything in Kethvar experience. Clean, comfortable, and designed to treat inmates with dignity rather than break their spirits. "I don't understand you humans," he told Captain Ryan Brooks during one of their conversations. "You have the power to destroy my empire, yet you offer friendship instead. You could have executed me and my officers, yet you treat us as honored guests." Ryan smiled. "Admiral, we didn't fight this battle because we hate your people. We fought because we love ours. Now that the fighting is over, there's no reason we can't learn from each other." Over the following months, as the details of the battle became known throughout the galaxy, humanity's reputation underwent a dramatic transformation. They were no longer seen as a primitive species ripe for conquest, but as a formidable military power with advanced technology and superior tactics. More importantly, they became known as a species that valued honor, mercy, and the preservation of life even in warfare. Diplomatic missions began arriving from across the galaxy, seeking alliances with these remarkable newcomers who had achieved the impossible. They had defeated the Kethvar Empire not through brutality, but through intelligence, creativity, and an unshakable commitment to protecting what they loved. The enemy's first look at a Terran warship had indeed ended in total defeat, but it also marked the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, one where strength and compassion could coexist, and where the newest species might also prove to be the wisest.